I lived a double life for years. To my friends, I was Bob Mazur, a federal agent. To the underworld that dealt with me undercover, I was Bob Musella, a player in one of the most violent Colombian drug cartels on earth. I've committed more crime than many people sitting in prison for the rest of their lives. The good news is, I was authorized to live that life of crime by the U.S. and several other governments.
Wow. Operation Sea Chase became one of the most successful undercover operations in the history of U.S. law enforcement. And the man in the middle of it all joins us now. Welcome, the infiltrator himself, former federal agent Bob Mazur. Welcome, Bob.
Oh, thank you very much.
So the operation's over, yet you're still in silhouette. What is the danger now?
Well, I participated with one of the most violent drug cartels on the planet, and after the undercover operation was over, several law enforcement agencies and an intelligence agency indicated that there was a threat to against my life. So at that stage, for a number of years, I and my family lived underground. And these types of things are not things that are written on paper. So just in the normal course of caution, I would prefer not to have my current likeness shown, and we take certain precautions from a security standpoint till today.
Let's talk a little bit about this. You know, drugs, obviously a big business in Colombia, and we now know who you were undercover, as we just saw, but what was your goal with Operation Sea Chase?
Well, the goal of the operation was to identify the command and control of the Medellin cartel, and to identify the highest level money launderers that were assisting them to launder literally hundreds of billions of dollars. And so my responsibility after putting together, it took about 1.5 years to put together a very sophisticated new identity, a company that I worked with, a number of companies that were real companies, a finance company, investment company, even a brokerage firm with a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. So with that cover, I slowly worked my way into credibility, ultimately to many of the people that were reporting directly to Pablo Escobar.
Wow. And this is like amazing. You're one of the guys, you're buddies with all these dirty bankers and businessmen who are laundering billions of dollars, but under those fancy suits of yours, you had recorders on. How deep did your cover go? I mean, 5 years is a long time. Do you lose yourself? Do you lose the real you?
Well, I think I was extraordinarily fortunate because I went through 2 undercover schools that not only involved very experienced long-term undercovers, but also involve the assistance from psychologists who are trained, who really study this type of law enforcement technique. And I think with their help throughout that, I was prepared to go through it. But yes, there's no doubt that when you build an undercover identity, you need to build that so that it's very close to the real you. I'm originally from New York. I have a financial background.
So you keep some of that so that you don't slip up, I guess.
Yeah, the fewer lies you tell, the easier it is to keep it covered.
Hey, Robert, this is Jada. Tell us all about the sacrifices you and your family have made and continue to make. And I'm going to guess there's some psychological and emotional stability that you have to have in this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, if you go into this and you think that you're not going to be affected as an individual, then you're going to be you're going to be surprised. There's no way around that. I mean, I build a relationship with these bad guys so that they believe that I'm their friends, and in a certain way, and as I explain in my book, I really have to give a part of me to them in order to have them treat me and for me to think of them as friends. So. Yeah, with them there's a psychological issue, and certainly for your family there's a tremendous psychological issue that you face because you're away for a very long time under dangerous situations.
But I'm assuming that you saw the benefit of putting yourself at this huge risk just for the good of what you were doing, and ultimately were able to catch the bad guy.
Well, you know, it's taken me a long time to try to figure out why I would want to do something like that.
Yeah, that's what we want to know.
Exactly. Question we have.
I'm still in the process. You know, writing the book really was a tremendous help. It caused me to really focus on this and to analyze the situation. So I think just like almost 99.9% of the people in law enforcement, I want to be a part of making a difference. But my definition of making a difference was being as close to crime as I could possibly be that couldn't be collected in any other way, and bringing that information back. If I served, no matter which agency, federal agency I was in, it really didn't matter what color my badge was, what name was on it. The bottom line is that I wanted to serve the public and to be able to look the public in the face, my family, my friends, and say, I did the very best for you that I possibly could today. And that was my I think that was my motivation behind volunteering for this position.
I'm like, to give people an idea, so I'm picturing Pablo Escobar, piles of drugs
Yeah.
and cash. I mean, meanwhile, you're wired. I mean, what could have happened if you were caught?
Well, there's no doubt that if they figured out who I was, I probably wouldn't be here today. There were times when, unfortunately, you know, you're part of a big group. I'm not a lone wolf here. I'm not the great American hero, really. There are 250 people behind me in the background who are trying to help keep me alive around the world.
Sure, sure.
And so, as I get into that operation, you know, I'm not alone. As I do this.
Did you ever have any like really close calls?
Well, I was
Like, were there
reading.
any times?
Yeah, I was just reading about this guy who was. You thought he was kind of checking for a wire because he was running his hand up your leg, but really he was just gay and coming onto you.
That's
I mean,
right.
But
I
you're
would have
always
been freaking
paranoid.
out, like, oh my God, he's looking for a, for a wire.
Yeah, well, that wasn't nearly as scary as when the other agents are working. They've got to do what cops do. So they do a lot of surveillance work, and they're not necessarily covering me at the time. So surveillance has got burned at times, and because of that, on one occasion, when meeting with an individual very close to Pablo Escobar, I was pointedly accused of being a DEA
Oh
undercover
my
agent.
gosh,
So I had to
cannot
talk my way out of that.
imagine. And here's the thing too, these criminals, they're not your average crooks. Like, these are brilliant, smart, born leaders.
Yeah.
They've obviously gone off the tracks a little bit, but did they think they were invincible? I mean, tell us about that and how you brought them down.
Well, there were three. These individuals speak 3 and 4 languages. They're college educated. They're
Yeah.
doctors. They're lawyers. They're corporate executive types. They're very, very calculating. They may take 3 years to decide how it is they want to do an operation and not even have drugs in a system before they start using it. But in order to get them all together, because it's one thing to have an investigation and get evidence, but you really need to get your hands on these people
And it was
to bring them to
genius
justice.
how you guys did this. You invited them right into the hands of the law.
About 4 or 5 months before the end of the operation, we all collectively thought that they were very good friends of mine. So we came up with an idea, and that was to invite them to a country club where I was to be married. And they all, quite a few people came, people from Pakistan, from Colombia, from Panama, from the UK and France, and around the United States came to this thinking that they were going to go to a wedding.
And they're in their Sunday best too, showing up thinking they're
Right.
coming to a party. And they
they're
get brought down.
busted.
So here's the thing. Like we said, this is the biggest bust in history of its kind. But this kind of thing is still happening, right? I mean, what do we need to do moving forward?
Well, I think that, first of all, yes, these undercover operations are going on, and there are men and women who put themselves at risk every single day. As far as the drug world is concerned, yeah, there's a demand, and anytime there's a demand, there's going to be a supply. I don't think we're going to be able to stop this problem by strictly focusing on the supply. I really think that we neglect at times 2 very important things, and that's education and treatment for the
Yeah.
people who use these drugs.
And I think the book will help do that, because not only is it telling your story, but it's going to get people talking. I mean, it's fascinating. There's even a major motion picture in the works, right? What's going on with that?
Yes, there is. And one of the important things I want to mention is that the international banking community makes this thing all work. And that's another part of the message of my book. As far as the movie is concerned, there's a production company out of London and a director by the name of Brad Furman out of LA who did The Lincoln Lawyer and other movies who were part of the project. And in the next couple of months, they hope to go into production.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing your story. You guys, the book is called The Infiltrator. It is fascinating. It's available now, so check that out. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Bob. We will be right back. You're watching Emotional Mojo.